One Wimbledon champion beaten by a 21-year-old from Quezon City. That's Alex Eala.
Everybody say Alex! Alex! Alex!
And today, Globe is bringing her home. This is Home Court, Globe's fan meet for their own Gen G ambassador, built entirely around one 5-day stretch that changed her career.
Okay, so 0-1-0.
She beat defending Wimbledon champion Iga Swiatek. She hit a career-high world number 28. The president of the Philippines personally handed her a citation. And today, she's not on center court. She's not in Malacanang. She's right here at Glorieta about to meet us. I'm not leaving until I show you all of it, every part of it, from the moment the doors opened to the moment she walked off that stage. Let's go. First, let's really sit with what Globe actually built here, because this isn't some random meet and greet thrown together at the last minute because a marketing team saw a trending hashtag. Alex Eala is Globe's Gen G ambassador, which is their program built around young Filipino talent breaking out on the world stage, the kind of talent that makes an entire country stop scrolling and pay attention for a moment. And instead of just posting a congrats graphic like every other brand did this week, instead of a quick tweet, a boilerplate press release, a generic story on social media that disappears in 24 hours, Globe did something bigger and something riskier. They booked out the Glorieta Activity Center, a real physical space in the middle of Makati. They built a full program around her, top to bottom. From the stage design, to the crowd control, to the media presence, to the security needed to handle a crowd this size. They gave it a name, Home Court, something that actually sounds like a homecoming and not a corporate event squeezed into a press schedule. And they turned her return into a moment fans could actually be part of. Not just watch from behind a screen, not just see through a highlight reel days later, but stand in the same room for. That's the play, not an ad. A homecoming built by a brand that clearly understood the size of the moment they were sitting on and decided to do something with it instead of letting it pass by. But here's why Globe had to move fast on this, because look at what happened in less than a week. A stretch of days so packed that any single one of these moments on its own would have been the biggest sports story of the month. And somehow she stacked every one of them together into a single stretch of time. It started with Wimbledon. She didn't just play, she didn't just show up and compete respectably. She beat defending champion Iga Swiatek, the reigning Wimbledon champion, gone, eliminated by a Filipina underdog on one of the biggest and most historic stages tennis has ever offered anyone. She then fell to Jasmine Paolini in the round of 16, and while that loss ended her run, let's be completely honest about what she accomplished before that match, because no Filipino athlete has ever gone that deep at Wimbledon before. Not close, not even in the same conversation. Ever. Then came Sunday, the day she landed back in Manila, and the airport turned into a full-blown scene the second she walked through arrivals. Fans everywhere, phones out, people chanting her name from behind barricades, and she was already signing autographs before she even made it out of the terminal doors, before she'd even had a chance to process being back on home soil. Monday brought her to Malacanang Palace, where President Marcos handed her a citation in person, a formal, official recognition for what she had just pulled off at Wimbledon, the kind of moment that doesn't happen to just anyone, and definitely doesn't happen to a 21-year-old this early in her career, this early in what's clearly still just the beginning of her story. That same week, her ranking updated, and she landed at world number 28, a brand new career high, proof that the Wimbledon run wasn't some isolated fluke, but part of a genuine, sustained climb that's been building quietly for months before the world started paying attention. And then, almost as a footnote compared to everything else happening around her, she sat down for a press conference and talked candidly about how she's handling the money that's suddenly coming in with all this success. She said she's being cautious, that she's saving and investing rather than spending it all at once, and she credited her family for keeping her grounded and helping her manage everything responsibly at an age when most people haven't had to think about money like this at all. She even laughed about a shopping trip she's planning with fellow player Zeynep Sönmez once they're both back on tour together. A small, human, almost ordinary detail sitting right in the middle of a week that was otherwise entirely about history and headlines and national pride. 5 days. A Grand Slam upset over a defending champion, a presidential citation, a career-high ranking, and a young athlete still finding time to joke about shopping with a friend like it's just any other week. That's the version of Alex Eala walking into Glorietta today, and that's exactly why Globe built an entire event around this one single week instead of waiting for some quieter, safer moment down the line when the buzz might have already faded. So here's today specifically because the actual event deserves its own spotlight and its own breakdown. It's called Home Court, the Alex Eala Fan Meet Experience, held at the Glorietta Activity Center in Makati. Registration opened at 4 in the afternoon, and the program itself kicks off at 6, giving fans a real window to arrive, settle in, and actually feel like part of something building toward a moment rather than just rushing in and out. Globe has been pushing this online too, under the hashtag #GlobeHomeCrowd, rallying her fan base for days leading up to today, encouraging them to show up in person and be part of this homecoming with her instead of just watching clips of it later on someone else's channel. And look at this crowd already forming outside the venue, because this isn't a scattered handful of people who happen to wander by on their way somewhere else. This is a real homecoming crowd, the kind that shows up hours early, brings handmade signs, waits patiently in line under the heat, all for someone who just put the entire Philippines on the map at one of the biggest and most prestigious stages tennis has ever offered. Let's find out why people actually showed up today in their own words, because the reasons behind it matter just as much as the event itself, maybe even more. And the answer is basically the same every single time you ask someone in that line. She made history, and today they finally get to say thank you to her face. In person, not through a screen, not through a comment section, not through a message that might never get read, but in person, standing right there in front of her. At this level of sport, with an athlete this high up in the world rankings, that kind of direct access almost never happens, which is exactly what makes today feel different from a typical fan interaction, different from a quick photo op, different from anything most of these fans have ever experienced before. Registration is done, the doors are open, and home court is officially starting. There she is. Listen to this crowd, the noise building the second she steps into view, rising in waves, the kind of reaction that tells you everything you need to know about what this moment means to the people who waited hours for it. During the program, she talked openly about how strange the last week has felt, going from playing Świątek on center court one day to standing in Malacanang getting personally recognized by the president the next, two completely different worlds colliding within the span of just a few short days, worlds most people never even get to visit once, let alone both in the same week. She also made it clear she isn't slowing down anytime soon, that this homecoming is a pause, not a stop. The next stop on her calendar is the U.S. hardcourt swing, starting with Washington, D.C., then moving on to Toronto, and after that, Cincinnati, a demanding, grueling stretch that will really test whether this Wimbledon breakthrough was a genuine turning point in her career or simply a single, spectacular peak. But today wasn't about what's coming next, and to her credit, she kept steering the focus back to that. Today was about coming back to the people who were rooting for her long before any of this Grand Slam attention existed, back when she was just another rising player working her way up the rankings match by match, with absolutely no guarantee of where any of it would eventually lead. And Globe made sure that moment actually happened, giving her a physical space and a real present crowd instead of leaving that gratitude to a scheduled social media post that would have disappeared in a day. Honestly, this was one of the most genuine fan events I've ever covered, and I say that without any exaggeration for the camera. It didn't feel like a brand activation dressed up as a celebration. It didn't feel scripted or hollow the way these things sometimes can. It felt like a real welcome home, the kind you'd expect from a small town greeting a returning hero, except scaled up to fit a moment that mattered to an entire nation. A 21-year-old from Quezon City beat a Wimbledon champion, got personally honored by the president, hit a career-high ranking, and then still made time in the middle of all of that to show up and thank the people who supported her before any of it happened, before the rankings climbed, before the headlines started, before any of the attention that comes with a run like this even existed. Subscribe for more update